welcome to the Your Pennsylvania Ancestors podcast. This week on the podcast, I talk with Jodi Sherston, president of the Erie Society for Genealogical Research. If you're not from Pennsylvania, you might not know that Erie County is in the way upper corner of the state. It feels like you're not even in Pennsylvania because they were a harbor unto themselves and such a part of the communities of the Midwest as well as New York. But Jodi will cover what resources the Society has that you can access anywhere in the world, and why any genealogist with ancestors in the area would really benefit from a trip to Erie. You'll find as a genealogist, if you have ancestors in an area, it's really worth a trip to really get a flavor of what it was like for your ancestors in that town at the time that they lived there. And now, here's Jodi. Jodi Sherston, welcome to the podcast. You're the president of the Erie Society for Genealogical Research, and I would just love for you to share with everyone listening about yourself and the society and all the, I'm sure, absolutely sure, the wonderful work that you do.
Well, my name, of course, is Jodi, and I am the president. I was elected in 2019. I did not really realize how much of a commitment that was going to be, but I am thoroughly enjoying this. Absolutely. I joined the society in 2014. A friend of mine and I both joined at the same time. And what got me started was my mother's 80th birthday was coming up, and I was between jobs at the time, and I thought, I'll start a trial on Ancestry.com, see what happens, because she had been talking about trying to get together some of her notes on genealogy, and she had done some work over at the Union City History Center, which also has a wonderful lady there who is very familiar with Union City history, which is where my mom's family was hailing. So through my efforts with the society that year, I was able to put a book together for her 80th birthday, going back quite a ways on the Ancestry.com and also using some of the resources of the Erie Society for Genealogical Research. Now working on my dad's side of the family, which is a little bit more mysterious because they came over probably about the 1870s during one of the migrations. And there was an interesting thing that I found that his birth record was not the last name that we grew up with. Find all kinds of little things out about your family background through genealogy research.
You certainly can, can't you? It's. I always tell people it's not for the faint of heart. If you've got to be prepared to expect the unexpected when you do genealogy, for sure. So tell me about the Erie Society. What's unique about, well, first of all, Erie, I mean, obviously is one of the more unique parts of Pennsylvania. Given that uniqueness, what is unique about your collection, I guess, or what the society does?
Well, Erie has a long history. ESGR has a long history in Erie and a membership that is made up of people all over the United States, Florida, Michigan, California, and others. We have a great group of locals for our monthly meetings, speaker series, and we do that the second Tuesday of the month, and we invite people from all over the place. And Erie does have a couple of different library branches that are fantastic as far as technology, computer usage, etc. Down on the bayfront by the dock, and of course we are a lakeside city, so we have a port. And down by that port, we do have a maritime museum that is connected with our public library, which also has a heritage room that has a collection of microfilm collection that contains the Erie newspapers beginning in 1820. And that's like really far back for a lot of places to have newspapers.
Yeah, I think that's something for people to keep in mind, that Erie came in terms of a formal county to the state of Pennsylvania a little later than most. And so your records start in 1800. And yeah, people migrated there because it was a bustling maritime port. It was a major spot for trade.
Absolutely, and it does have an extensive maritime collection, and there's a lot of books down there that are like diaries and journals and that type of thing. So if you have ancestors that were in the port or came in and out during the wars, that would be of interest to people.
You know what I never thought about is, did immigrants to the United States come through Erie at any point?
Most of the things that went out from Erie were more commercial. United States and Canada. I'm sure there were a few that came through there, and
Okay.
certainly we had, the sailors coming back from World War II, World War I, that kind of thing. So, and the state of Michigan, kind of next door and down the line there, also had, that maritime history as well.
That's great. So just to reiterate for people, the Heritage Room is at the public library, and to use that is totally free, right? The library doesn't charge anything. Yeah.
Now, they do have the film machines on a first come, first served basis, of course. They do have, it's called actually the Blasco Memorial Library, if you're looking it up online for directions. And it would be called the Heritage Room. It's on the second floor. And an interesting story, my mom had a little story about Bill the Ox that her grandparents had over in Findlay Lake. And I was in the Heritage Room one day, and I actually found a book of history for Findlay Lake, and I found a picture of Bill the Ox. And she was just like really amazed that happened.
It's things like that that really bring history to life too. Or so, you know what I mean? Like, I love things like that when we're doing research. And
I was thinking this morning, genealogy is about making history personal, the stories alive for generations, to give a sense of who you are and where you came from and where you belong.
That is perfect. You need to put that on a T-shirt or a book.
Have it as a byline for our.
Definitely, I think you should definitely put that up, because people sometimes look at it as like, oh, they're just a bunch of folks trying to attach themselves to royalty or famous people, and a lot of times, for a lot of us, we're really not related to anything, significant. But the process of learning and is so enriching, to see what our ancestors went through, sort of to put ourselves in their shoes.
Recently, just on a side note, I basically was raised on horseback, and I would do a lot of interesting things with my horses, jumping and, trail riding and just doing things like that. And through some research on my dad's side, I found out that his grandfather came from an area over in Romania where horsemanship was, really, they were the top-notch horsemen in that area at that time. And they were warriors that, their horsebacking skills really won them a lot of power and land and all of that. So it was very interesting to find that connection personally.
Oh, wow. It's a kind of a little freaky too, right?
Yes, it is, especially when it's around Transylvania.
You never know where people in Pennsylvania have come from. You got to really broaden your research too. It's not all, we're not all Germans and Irish.
Exactly. So now, just getting back to some of the other things that are available in Erie, I mean, we have local historical societies all over the place. We've got the little borough of Fairview and Corey, Girard, Waterford especially. Of course, I believe this is true. In Waterford, we have a statue of George Washington. And of course, a lot of places have George Washington as their statue, but Waterford's statue actually depicts him in a British uniform. Because, remember your history of the French and Indian War, Huff was right there in Waterford. So he was the one that came up to deliver the message from the British, hey, you French, get out of here. And that to kind of memorialize that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So
You find little pieces like that, and then if you find out you're a relative of George Washington, you can really put your chest out there.
Yeah, so that early history of the United States, and particularly Pennsylvania with the French and Indian War, you need to know that.
Pennsylvania was also, the basically the beginning of the oil industry as well. Drake's Well down in Titusville.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so Pennsylvania itself and Erie and the surrounding areas have a history that goes back beyond the Revolutionary War, French and Indian War, things probably all the way back to the Mayflower if you really want to dream.
Right. And it's a completely different kind of history than the urban history around Philadelphia. So, different religious groups, different ethnicity sometimes, different, so and a different kind of feel to the whole thing. So people, if you've researched in one part of Pennsylvania, you really need to pretend like you're almost in a different state when you start researching in Erie, and it's not, but just be open-minded, I guess, is the way I'm trying to put it.
Exactly. And I mean, currently Erie boasts of a huge migrant population. I think it's like second or third in the country, which I was really shocked to hear. But there's a lot of people still coming to Erie to start their new life from other lands.
Yeah. See, it's Pennsylvania. We're like open doors and come on in, Now,
just to get back to the ESGR.
That's what he's going to do. Yeah.
Our base of operations is actually currently at the Hagan History Center, and that is, they just changed their name to that, and it used to be the Erie County Historical Society. So our research volunteers there actually have access to the local documents and books at the History Center that people can view by appointment. In addition, we charge a small fee for people to mail in a request and have our researcher, Alice, she is fantastic in, finding people's, birth records and things like that. And she communicates via email and regular mail. And we get a lot of requests from out of state, throughout Pennsylvania, even in some of the local areas close by, she'll get some requests.
Oh, perfect. I was just going to ask you. Yeah.
Yeah, we also have something called the Keystone Cousins. That's our quarterly publications. And we have people that submit articles about their research experience. We have a series going on, I think the last of the series going on, how to put a family history book together. We have somebody that graciously submitted a diary of the area just to give us a sense of what life was like back then and what the ancestors of that time would have been concerned with. So interesting to read that. And then we had an article most recently about some of the old sayings from the ancestors. like rule of thumb and nose to the grindstone, that kind of stuff. So that's really some of the things that we feature in our paper magazine, and it also is available electronically. You would, when you become a member, that's part of your benefits, and you also get a.
Oh, that's fantastic. So if anyone listening anywhere has ancestors that lived in Erie County, passed through Erie County, they need to run, not walk, to your society and join up. It sounds like,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we do have special interest groups at our local libraries, one on the west side and one in the downtown library. But as I may have said that before, we have a person that's really passionate about that DNA testing used for genealogical research, and she has knowledge at the wazoo. I mean, she must eat and breathe DNA. And we have another person that is very adept at using the internet to find resources, and she passes on these fantastic tips and websites all over the place. And she does that way out on the west side of the Lincoln Center, all of which are advertised on our website. So if you want to come and join us, check out our website. We do have a Facebook page as well, just to let people know what's happening where.
Okay, perfect. And I'll put those links in the show notes for folks so they can find you. Yeah, and I always encourage people, if you can't visit in person, and it's always worthwhile to make the trip if you've got some solid roots in an area, so you can get a flavor of your ancestors' life and really dig through the archives. But you can also, you have an excellent researcher, and they can contact you that way and get some of that hands-on research that they can't do at a distance.
I got a note from somebody down in another county that actually used our website resources to conduct a class down there on genealogy, and she was just so thankful that we had all this stuff available for free. I was just so happy that people are looking at this and paying attention to what we've got and utilizing it, just for the sake of making that history personal to people.
Yeah, it's wonderful, the work that you're doing and the time that you put into it. It is appreciated, and let me thank you on behalf of every genealogist who's who's stopped by your website and they have no name and no face, and poked through. No, seriously, you're doing the work of genealogy angels, I guess, to keep that stuff alive for us. So, Jodi, I know you've got to run, and I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast, represent that corner of Pennsylvania that kind of gets tucked behind Pittsburgh and Philadelphia sometimes. But it's a fantastic area, and definitely deserves a huge shout out in terms of researching in Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much for having me on, and maybe at some point we can meet in person.
I want to thank Jodi once again for joining me on the podcast and sharing what's unique about Erie and Erie County. This is Denise Allen. As always, I appreciate a review on Apple especially. It really helps other people find the podcast, given the algorithms that exist these days for how things are found. I would love to answer any questions that you have or any comments that you have about the podcast. And I'll talk to you next week, where we're going to go back to Philadelphia and learn more about the archives around and in the city.